that's something UL might have to adapt for?
But possibly, I think one of the things that you could lean on is that Incineroar in particular, the knockoff. If you can get rid of the Assault Vest on the Archaludon, it does make it a lot easier, and you've got that Gauss Terror typing as well. It does mean committing to that, but it does give you the immunity to that body press that could be so threatening.
Well, it is going to be the Indeedee Sneasler combination, setting the Psychic Terrain into the field, reducing any potential priority, but I think critically boosting up the Expanding Force and making a double target move for that Indeedee, as well as this beautiful synergy with the Psychic Seed, boosting up the special defense and unleashing the Unburden ability on that Sneasler.
Yeah, that's it. And if you look at your side of the field, got access to that Tailwind with the multi-scale as well. You feel like the Dragonite's probably in that nice position where it's going to be able to get that set up despite any obstacles in Diaclone maybe coming out. Got to contend with obviously an attack from the Sneasler and that Expanding Force, which you would imagine coming out. But the Ursaluna are in a position now where you probably want to protect because you want to get that Flame Orb activated. It's a run-of-the-mill sort of play here, but I don't know if SHAI's got the ability to kind of prevent that Tailwind being set up, and without much speed control on their side of the field, they're going to struggle. But there is the Trick Room, so there is that potential of the Indeedee just clicking Trick Room, not attacking, and really throwing a spanner in yours work if they're going for the Tailwind. Looking into that though, not something you want to commit to too early on.
That's the thing, you don't necessarily want to commit to the Trick Room and then kind of only be forced to match that against that Tailwind, for example. It may not be the strategy you want for the rest of your team composition, but team adaptations being made straight away. Indeedee going to get all the sparkles on the stage and turn into the Psychic Terror type, meaning it's going to boost up its Expanding Force with that terrain as well. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the field for both these Pokemon as Sneasler tries to go for the Diaclaw, not going to affect the Steel type and the Archaludon. A beautiful adjustment by YOEL there, but there's no stopping this Expanding Force. The Assault Vest definitely going to help out the Archaludon by reducing the damage, but Ursaluna not so lucky.
Not so lucky, but taking that very well. You've got to consider that the Psychic Terrain's on the field, and that is boosted. The Earthquake in return, they're going to be enough to pick up the Sneasler. Not enough to get the Indeedee, but does damage your own Archaludon in the process, boosting that Stamina ability, but taking a lot of damage for the trouble.
I mean, I guess luckily you were able to kind of get the boost beforehand from the stamina hit, just being able to kind of have a bit more longevity, but unfortunately for Sneasler, it's down and out. The Psychic Seed's only going to boost up the special defense, not the physical side. It does give SHAI the opportunity to bring in the Blood Moon Ursaluna to kind of retaliate.
Yeah, it does, and I think that Archaludon now in that position where is the Bug Terror type the good play, because in one respect it is against that Blood Moon where you can get the resistance to that Earth Power, but then you lose that resistance that you've got to those normal type attacks, which is going to be quite pivotal here, because maybe you do, if you are SHAI, go for that Hyper Voice just to kind of clear the field with the Expanded Force. You'd imagine that will be enough, that combination, and you've got to imagine as well that the Indeedee will outspeed that Archaludon. Does the Blood Moon though? That's the big question here, that the Indeedee just wanting to protect this turn.
Yeah, a wise defensive play by SHAI here, allow the Blood Moon Ursaluna to be able to try and clear some of this field, but instead it's going to be actually a defensive play all round. SHAI may be wanting to try and see exactly what the opponent's going to do, and it's matched. Lots of protects. Fantastic call out here, Lee.
Yeah, really good call here, because just wanting to get a tick down on that burn as well from the Ursaluna and actually be able to pick up the knockout, scouting out the protect from your side of the field. SHAI identifying that, thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to stall a turn here. There's no immediate threat from me to have to attack. Let's see what my opponent does, and now it gets that Ursaluna a little bit closer to that chip damage, and it can't protect this next turn when you want to try and preserve it. It almost makes you have to force it out, and do you really want to bring anything in on this boosted, Terra-boosted Expanding Force?
Ursaluna, particularly when it's got the Guts ability activated thanks to that burn, is such a formidable force, so you need to make sure you're not underestimating it. And like you say, playing around these burn turns and putting it in a precarious spot where you can get a knockout. No wonder UL is retreating here, maybe saving it in the back for later when it can come through and sweep as Sinistcha joins the field. Nice here for the Archaludon, because Hospitality is going to give it a little bit of HP recovery, which I think it needs in this situation. And now you can see the Expanding Force follow up. We know this is not going to be able to put too much pressure on the opposing Archaludon, but Sinistcha is not going to appreciate it.
Oof, no, taking over 50% damage, but another stamina boost. Not really going to help too much in front of these special attacking forces on SHAI's side of the field. And what has this Blood Moon locked into? Has it went for that Earth Power? Has it went for the Terra Blast? But it's slower, and the Body Breast coming out. Not quite enough to pick up the Blood Moon, and returning with that Hyper Voice. No knockout in return. So we do know the speed interactions here, that Archaludon is outspeeding that Blood Moon.
And that's bad news for the Blood Moon Ursaluna. It goes down thanks to the recoil of his Life Orb as well, and underwhelming damage from the Hyper Voice too. Both Pokemon on UL side easily able to take that attack. At least SHAI does get the utility to now switch up and bring in the Incineroar to throw down the Intimidate, but the Intimidate's really not that important here. The Psychic Terrain's in place, so you can't even go for a fake out, which meaning Incineroar has to go on the offensive.
Yeah, and the problem is that body press is already powered up. Those expanding forces, the double-edged sword we've talked about before. You are getting damage onto Archelodon, but the beauty about that is for your opponent that those stamina boosts are activating, that body press is becoming so powerful, and it will be enough to probably pick up that Incineroar now, and it's really backfiring the Psychic Terrain where you don't have the accessibility of that fake out to maybe try and slow it down this turn. You're just a sitting duck really at this point, where we know the speed of that Archelodon. It is going to outspeed. It's probably got enough in the tank to take an expanding force as well. So the Sinistcha not on the best of places, but is switching out your one to keep that, preserve that for later, which is quite smart with that hospitality ability.
Sinistcha doesn't even want to take a knockoff, for example, from that Incineroar, so instead we're going to see the switch into the Dragonite. And DD, being the fastest thing on the field, is going to be able to go for the expanding force, but is it going to be enough to get the knockout?
Oh,
yes,
it's enough!
It goes down. Incineroar can breathe a sigh of relief, not having to worry about taking a potential body press, and instead is free to target down into this opposing Dragonite. Going to go for the Flare Blitz, of course, not going to do too much to the Dragon type, but critically breaking the multi-scale. And when I say not too much, that was actually quite a bit.
That's quite a bit of damage on the switching, but it does allow you to preserve that Sinistcha, so you can bring it in again and utilize that hospitality. Fortunately, you do use that Archelodon there, because if it just survived, you've got to think then the Incineroar wouldn't have much in the tank, but SHAI doing everything right at this point. And you can see the importance. The Ndidi on 15 HP at the moment, but sticking around, doing all the damage, taking full advantage of the Psychic Terrain. One more turn of that left, so going to be able to fire off an expanding force. Now, you've got to imagine if there's no protects come out here, will be enough to clear the field on your side.
And to correct myself, Ndidi had already broken the multi-scale, actually, facilitating a better damage calculation there for the Incineroar. Now, Ndidi has the capability to go for that expanding force once again, try and get the knockout, because it will deal more damage into that Dragonite, and Ursaluna's really on its last legs.
Yeah, everything coming down to the wire here as we see a protect come out from this Ursaluna. Not one to take or contend with that expanding force going into this turn. It all comes down to the Dragonite. The multi-scale has been broken. Will it be able to take this boosted attack from the mill? Indeed, it all comes down to this damage, and will it survive? It will not survive. SHAI clawing this match back. YOEL in an awkward position going forward, and I feel like it's really difficult to come back. SHAI was in a position where it looked really downhill for him, but able with these two Pokemon just to bring this right back, and the star of the show in this game one has got to be that Ndidi male.
Yes, once again, Ndidi on a rampage. This is something very similar to what we saw in Lille Regional Championships, and now we're able to see it once again. Critically, yes, the Sneasler went down. It wasn't really able to utilize its position on the field, but it's been all about the Ndidi. The Sneasler may be drawing in all of the attention, so that Ndidi is now in a prime position to go for an expanding force.
Yeah, and without the expanding force being a double target attack now, it does make it a little bit more awkward, but it all comes down again, how fast is this Incineroar? Does it outspeed the Ursaluna? If it does, it's going to have that time where it can go for the Flare Blitz into that Pokemon. Will it be enough to take it down, though? And does the Sinistcha have the ability to get maybe a Trick Room set up? Because if it can position that Ursaluna in a way where it is able to clear the field, and that's going to come right down to it. We see the Protect on the Ndidi here. It doesn't want to contend with any damage this turn, and it will be the Rage Powder coming out from this Sinistcha, protecting that Ursaluna.
I love this play. The Dark type now means that Ndidi cannot touch it at all, so there is no way to be able to deal with that Pokemon if you get rid of the Incineroar. Thanks to the safety goggles on that Incineroar as well, it's not affected by the Rage Powder, ignores all powder-based moves, so it was able to still find its mark down on the Ursaluna. But if the Sinistcha can't find a way to deal with the Incineroar, if Incineroar gets there first, then it's going to be an interesting endgame. And Ndidi, I think, realizing, hey, I can't do anything to Sinistcha, but you can, Incineroar. Take a helping hand and Flare Blitz me a victory in game one.
Yeah, again, I think we see the Rage Powder there to pull in that expanding force and then hope and pray that the Incineroar is slower than the Ursaluna. But unfortunately, for YOEL, not the case, and SHAI doing all the right things here and pulling this match back from what looked like a really bad position with just two Pokemon.
Absolutely love to see that Ndidi play, and I still want to credit YOEL going for that Dark Terrestrialization on Sinistcha. I just think it was too little too late in that game. If it had potentially been a little bit more at the forefront, able to apply pressure with something like a Trick Room and reverse the speeds and slow the pace of play down with that Dark type to completely neutralize the threat that Ndidi has, it might have gained him a little bit more advantage.
Yeah, definitely that, and I think we're leaning more into the importance of the speed control in this match. I think for SHAI in particular, you've got to, if you want to really utilize utilize and unlock that Blood Moon Ursaluna, you're going to have to utilize your speed control through something like Talonflame, but it means dropping one of those other members that you had such success with in that last game. So do you make that compromise? And if you're YOEL, I think the importance of getting your Trick Room set up in this game is so pivotal, because if you get that that Ursaluna into a Trick Room environment, it's going to cause SHAI so many problems. So it's really pivotal. Like you say, that terrestrialization to the Dark type, a really good idea, especially when you've got things like Expanding Force coming out into the field. Once you've dispatched of maybe the Sneasler that SHAI brings, then you're going to be in that nicer position where you can hopefully utilize that Trick Room, get it set up, and then unlock the power of the bear.
We spoke about how indeed Sneasler was such an iconic lead there for SHAI. Do you think it's going to be the same lead going into this? Do you see a need to change it up?
I don't really see a need to change it up. I mean, I feel like the Sneasler was given up quite easily then. You know, it wasn't anything that went wrong because SHAI came out on the better end of that match. But I do think, you know, the Indeedee was so pivotal in that match, where it was just able to sit on the field and essentially fire off Expanding Force after Expanding Force under that Psychic terrain. And I think that's something that YOEL probably needs to mitigate and manage a little bit better going into this one. And you can see the Incineroar coming as a countermeasure to that straight away.
Yeah, well, you're right, Indeedee Sneasler. No need to shake it up. We're going to keep it how it was in Game 1, the victorious match for SHAI. And instead, we're going to see an adaptation here with the Incineroar and the Sinistcha on the field. So although there's one type, Dark type present now, there is the potential for a second. Yeah,
the one worry that you've got to have about going into that Dark terrestrialization now with the Sinistcha is the fact that you've got the close combat on that Sneasler, what makes it such a good Pokemon. And you could just go for it into the Incineroar, of course, as well, and just get some good damage there. The Indeedee is not going to be as effective, though, so that's the one drawback here. I think you maybe have one turn if you're YOEL, where if you are SHAI, you don't really want to commit too hard into going for that close combat into the Sinistcha to expect a terrestrialization, because if it doesn't come out, you've wasted a turn. So going for the close combat into the Incineroar, like we're seeing here, it's a safer option.
Yes, going into the guaranteed Dark type here, able to get a huge amount of damage onto that opposing Incineroar, and the special defense will, of course, be dropping thanks to the Psychic Seed has been able to have that boosted up, so it should now be at neutral. Indeedee going to be taking a parting shot. This is a really nice player, YOEL, I think, realizing that, yes, Indeedee is a threat on the offensive side as well. That's been perfectly demonstrated in Game 1, so let me try and stop you in your tracks a little bit, slow down the pressure you've got, and also allow this beautiful switch into Ursaluna that's going to be able to get its guts activated at the end of the turn.
Yeah, and this looks like this might be backfiring for SHAI here. You're expecting a Trick Room, so it looks like the Indeedee's Trick Rooming, but it's actually setting up the Trick Room for YOEL, not going for it with that Sinistcha, getting the Ursaluna onto the field. It's in its home territory. It's got that Flame Orb activated, and things are getting very difficult for SHAI very early on in this game.
This played out perfectly for YOEL, not only being able to bring in your dominant Trick Room Pokemon and get the guts activated, you have Trick Room kindly set up by your opponent. Now, how is SHAI going to get out of this?
Yeah, this is the tricky thing, because you've got 5 turns now to get out of it, or you try and reverse it. I don't know if the Indeedee's got the capabilities to take an attack like a Facade or an Earthquake even from this Ursaluna. Now that Guts ability is activated. So are you able to reverse the Trick Room? Probably not. Can you switch things up? You've got no switch-ins in the back to come in and be able to take these attacks from this Pokemon. So you're going to have to try and weave in the Incineroar. That's the best thing you've got at the moment with that Intimidate onto the Ursaluna to try and lower that attack. Hopefully allow maybe a close combat to come out from this Sneasler, but we're clutching here as it does go for that Protect.
You've got to start burning through the Trick Room turns. Protect is a really good way to do it. Magigotcha's going to come through from the Sinistcha, moving fast, of course, in this change speed environment. But Incineroar's actually going to avoid. Okay, that's one nice way to go about it, but Ursaluna's like, you can intimidate me, but Intimidate really does only go so far. You're still a Fire type, I am still a Ground type, and this Earthquake is going to do a huge chunk of damage. Critically, though, it actually doesn't get the knockout. That would have been huge if it was able to.
Yeah, it would have been massive, because then it starts to force the hand of SHAI and really lock in this Trick Room turns for YOEL. But unfortunately, the Incineroar not in a position where it can utilize that Fake Out. We know, we've seen the kind of speed interactions here. That Ursaluna is going to be slower than everything on SHAI's side of the field. So we're just going to have to play this cycle, Door of Revolving Pokemon. I'll get it in there when I can, but the Indeedee coming back onto the field. Another Earthquake, you've got to think, will be enough, especially after this Magigotcha.
And also the Sinistcha really doesn't care about taking the side Earthquake either. It gets this recovery from Magigotcha, and the Earthquake does barely any damage anyway. So Ursaluna is in a prime position to be able to go for this move without feeling bad for its teammate. The Indeedee is going to take a burn for its troubles as well, put a timer on that Pokemon that SHAI would really want to be able to utilize. But I think Ursaluna is just going to be able to close up the game for Ursaluna. Ursaluna and Sneasler, leaving SHAI with just 2 remaining Pokemon.
Yeah, it's really fast-paced, and you're really seeing a great example from YOEL taking advantage of these Trick Room turns when they're in play and making the most out of them. You can see it's a hot-paced game, and only the Incineroar to come back in. It will be able to cycle in another Intimidate, which is great, so you're putting it down to -2 now. But really, with this Guts boost under the Trick Room and such low health from this Incineroar, especially with this Psychic Terrain active on the field, it's preventing that fake-out support. It's making it very difficult to make any sort of comeback.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to have a little look, and I think, is there any terrestrialization? SHAI still has access to it, am I correct?
Yes, SHAI still has access to the terrestrialization. You've got to look at the Blood Moon. What's the option there? We've got a normal type terrestrialization there, and would you commit to it so hard on the Incineroar with that ghost typing on such low health?
Not needed.
Probably not. So you're going for the normal type. If you go for anything, we may not see it here, but it might be worth it. One last-ditch effort to try and get a Blood Moon off, or a Hyper Voice even, to just get damage on the field. The Ursaluna on your side, though, has been preserved so well. It's not really had to contend with much damage, and we are seeing the terrestrialization. Which side of the field is it going to be from? I think we know where it is going, and it is into that Blood Moon Ursaluna.
The thing is, as soon as you deal with the Incineroar, there's really nothing Ursaluna can do to the opposing Sinistcha. Sure, you can Earth Power it, but you're going to need a few of those thrown its way to be able to get the knockout. Machigotcha coming through nice and strong again. This may indeed be enough to finish the KO onto the Incineroar and do a significant chunk to the opposing Ursaluna. Even if it does get the burn, though, as a special attacker, it's not going to mind that too much, but still, any damage is detrimental damage to SHAI here.
Yeah, hugely detrimental, and just a 1 versus, and the burn as well, so the timer added on there. So, you know, it's 1 Pokemon versus 4, and as good as Blood Moon Ursaluna has been in this format, I don't think it's got the capabilities to overcome the remaining resources on your side of the field. As we see that Earthquake not doing so much damage, of course, but the Hyper Voice in return will do quite considerable damage, boosted by that Life Ball.
Yes, of course. Oh, I forget. Mind's Eye going to be able to connect down on the Ghost-type Pokemon. Is still going to be able to do enough damage, but it's still not enough to be able to deal with the Sinistcha here. I mean, honestly, Indeedee was the superstar of Game 1, but in Game 2, it seems to have put a little bit of a spanner in the works for its team. Yeah,
it's really backfired on SHAI. You can see the thinking there in turn 1. You think, okay, well, I don't have Imprison on my Indeedee. I do have Trick Room, so I can catch out the Trick Room turn on the Sinistcha, but you're not really playing into that, thinking, well, if you want to play the mind games, you go for it. And if you do set that Trick Room up, well, you'll see the benefit that it can reward me, and I'll take full advantage of that. That parting shot was beautifully done to get that Ursaluna in. And as we see the Life Dew come out here, the Facade is going to be into that Ursaluna, and enough to clean this up, tying us up, taking us to a Game 3.
Not gonna lie, I love this. So a Game 3, when you've got such high caliber Pokemon action, is always a treat and a learning experience for us all. And I mean, that Indeedee definitely went from hero to zero in that particular match. Such a devastating turn, but a risk, and you could see exactly what, you know, he was trying to do in that situation, but just Indeedee, unfortunately, going for that Trick Room not only meant that the speed wasn't exactly how SHAI wanted it, but it was exactly how YOEL wanted it, and that just gave his opponent so early on in the match a ticket to victory.
Yeah, it made it very easy for YOEL in that match, and especially in those situations. I mean, we could be sitting here celebrating SHAI's play there, where, you know, reversing the Trick Room on turn
that would have been incredible.
And, you know, that's the risk you take. Sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't, and it really didn't pay off in that game. And I think if you are going for that play, you've got to try and deny that parting shot from the Incineroar, because you can't allow that Ursaluna to get on the field, because even if you don't Trick Room, to reverse the Trick Room from your side of the field, the Trick Room goes up from the Sinistcha, and if that Ursaluna comes onto the field, you're still in that position where, yeah, you might have healthier Pokemon at that stage, but you're still going to be at the mercy of that Ursaluna with its Flame Orb activated under a Trick Room, and you're trying to reverse the Trick Room. You've got to prevent that Trick Room going up. If you allow it to go up, it's going to be a repeat of that. It's going to be a real struggle to kind of claw the match back from that point. So primary thing that you need to do is try and deny it. Remove that Sinistcha as soon as possible. Easier said than done, though. We saw how well it takes attacks.
That is very true, particularly with the Hospitality and the Machigotcha giving it a lot of recovery, plus that Citrus Berry in its back pocket to be able to cook up a brew, to be able to help it stay on the field. I mean, both these trainers, look at them lead. They're focused, they're ready. They are one game away from staying in the competition and one game away from being kicked out of top 32.
Well, this is the beauty about this game, and for us as a spectator as well, we've got this treat in store. It all comes down to this moment here. Both players, which one is going to be able to outthink and outmaneuver the other in this challenging matchup, because we've seen both players have exceptional games. Game 1, SHAI took it exceptionally well, prevented the Trick Room setup, didn't rely on any speed control, just did the job that was needed to be done. With that mail, indeed, he was able to really lean on that Pokemon quite heavily to good success. YOEL, obviously, in that last game, used the bear to big success. Ursaluna just dominating. Can the same happen again?
Well, this was the winning lead for YOEL, coming out front and center with the Incineroar and the Sinistcha, but in contrast, a shake-up in the mix for SHAI. It's Ursaluna, Blood Moon, and the Electabuzz for support.
Yeah, we've got the Blood Moon Ursaluna in response from SHAI, and it's in a great position where it's supported by that Electabuzz. It's going to be able to maybe even terrestrialize here. You've got to be wary about the fake out from that Incineroar, though. If it does come into that slot, it will slow you down one turn, and then it would allow that Trick Room setup from the Sinistcha. There's also the play where you've got that simple parting shot from the Incineroar we saw in game 1, or maybe a hard switch out into the Ursaluna where you get the Trick Room up and then you're ready to go.
Oh, this could be a prime position for YOEL if the synergy works out, but that has to be if SHAI allows it to happen. That Sinistcha, as you said, Lee, has to be got off the field to enable success for SHAI's side of the field. It's going to be getting the normal Terra type. That's going to be boosting up the normal type move, something like a Blood Moon into that opposing Sinistcha. Using Mind's Eye to hit the opposing Ghost type could be devastating. First of all, Electabuzz slowing down the pace of play, going for a taunt. In this situation, it just means Ursaluna cannot protect. But here comes the Blood Moon. Is it enough to get the knockout?
It's going to be a big hit, and it is into that Sinistcha. If it survives, it's going to get the Trick Room, and it's down and out.
That's why Lee has a microphone, because he knows what he's talking about. He said Sinistcha needs to go, and it is out of here. This is exactly what SHAI needs to be able to get back into this game.
Yeah, huge play there, and really good utility of that move. You know, catching out that Sinistcha, going probably for a Trick Room there, because you positioned, you hard switched out that Ursaluna, getting it onto the field, knowing that maybe the parting shot wasn't the option, the taunt coming out there from the Electabuzz, so that wouldn't have been the play. Really good scouting from YOEL, but not playing out because SHAI detecting what was about to happen. Blood Moon boosted by that terrestrialization in a place where it was able to really close things out. Now that Archaludon coming onto the field has to be wary about those Earth powers, because if you do get hit by that, it's going to be super effective. But the one thing YOEL has going for them is they do have their terrestrialization still active.
Yes, exactly. And Archaludon, interestingly enough, being the fourth Pokemon here, another adaptation on the field. No Pelipper to be seen, so it's gonna, if it wants to go for Electro Shots, it's gonna have to take that second charge. But with both the opponents on the field, I think it's gonna be more trying to get the snarls off, to reduce the special attack pressure, and then maybe once a few stamina boosts have been checked in, you can go for the body presses.
Yeah, definitely that, and we do see the Ursaluna being preserved for later on. Maybe you are leaning into maybe the support element of that Incineroar now, and also this Archaludon, which we are going to see terrestrialize. It is going to be into that bug type, taking away that ground type weakness. At the same time, you do remove the resistance that you've got to normal type attacks, but at the cost of having that earth power resistance, it is going to be huge, especially to allow maybe a body press coming off. Not seeing the Blood Moon attack this turn, it is just going to go for a protect and an Electro Web fired out. The big problem here is that you're boosting that stamina for later on. Maybe if SHAI has any of those physical attackers, not really going to be super helpful. Also on top of that, you've got the body press as well, which you're boosting up, which is going to be real detriment to that Ursaluna. Now with the fake out active on the Incineroar, you go fake out into the Electabuzz, and you go body press into the Ursaluna, and you can remove it from the field. You will get some damage off with the Ursaluna. Can a Blood Moon get that Archaludon? Probably not because of the Assault Vest, but can it get the Incineroar? Maybe.
I mean, this is the thing as well. The Electabuzz going for these Electro Webs, lowering the speed. It really does feel like SHAI has to commit to getting rid of the Archaludon with the special attackers, because as you said, the stamina booster rolling up, and then that means the body presses are going to be phenomenal. I love seeing this terrestrialization. It's also just very adorable seeing the little bug ears onto the Archaludon, but that is not to be underestimated at all. You have to make sure that you do not set up YOEL for success by putting one of his Pokemon in a position to shine. You need to avoid those stamina boosts. You need to try and get a knockout. Interestingly enough, bringing the Indeedee in, yes, it says the Psychic Drain stops any priority, but there's not really a lot Psychics can do to bug types.
No, I'm predicting that you're not committing to the fake out. We are going to see that Blood Moon. It is fired off from the Blood Moon into the Archaludon, and it is enough. Even with the Assault Vest, it takes that Pokemon down and out.
I feel like it took its Assault Vest off for a moment there and got caught unawares. That was so much devastating damage. Absolute destruction from this Blood Moon Ursaluna. It means business. It's trying to get itself into the top 16. The knockoff comes through. Yes, you lose the life orb, but I feel like that's not going to stop it at all.
No, it's not going to stop it one little bit. This is on a tear. The bear is on a tear. It's going after everything. It's got the ability now to go for an attack into the Incineroar with the Earth Power. The terrestrialization on your side of the field has been burnt, so there's no resistance able from that Pokemon. Then you've got, if you can survive this turn, you've got the ability to go for another Blood Moon. You've got to imagine it would be enough to pick up that Ursaluna on your side of the field, but you can't ignore. You've got to respect that Ursaluna. You can't allow it to get an attack off. Here we go. We are going to see a helping hand from the little Ndidi onto the big bear. Is it going to be able to fire off an attack? Not into the Ursaluna.
I love this though. You lost your life orb, but you've got a friend in me, says Ndidi, and it enables it to go for the Earth Power. That's a one-hit KO into the opposing Incineroar. As you said, there is no stopping this Ursaluna. A critical hit. SHAI wants to be in that top cut.
Yeah, and a really great predict, knowing that the Ursaluna might feel a little bit pressured this turn from an attack, wants to preserve it a little turn longer, has just got itself into a situation where the Blood Moon's reset. Another helping hand come out, and you've got to say this is going to lock up the game.
Yes, a clap for the MVP of this match as Ursaluna goes for the Blood Moon into its counterpart of the opposing Ursaluna. It will, of course, find its mark and get the knockout, and SHAI is going to be advancing into the top 16 with that Ursaluna, with that Ndidi. What a match!
Fast-paced endgame was incredible. SHAI coming out after a game 2.